Hey everyone, Dukaness here with the next video in my shotgunning guide. This video is going to build on the intro to shotgunning video, so definitely watch that first if you haven't already. The link's in the description, but just as a refresher, we talked about taking smart routes to travel to your opponent and when to commit. Those things are easy to do because you have time to think. You can think about the route you want to take once you spawn in because there's no rush, you're safe. Once you're in position, you can also think about whether or not you want to commit to attacking someone with your shotgun because there's no pressure, you're still safe. But once you've made that decision to commit and you're in deep, you need to think fast and make split-second decisions in the moment because your opponents aren't going to give you any more time and space than they have to. Sure, if you read the situation properly, you got within shotgun range without dying and landed your shot on target, your opponent dies and you made a successful push. But what about when things go south? Maybe your shot didn't register. Maybe your pellet spread was unfavorable. Maybe you missed a bit and only got a partial hit. Maybe you shot too early. These situations where your first shot doesn't kill your opponent happen every game, and a good shotgunner knows how to recover. That's what we're going to talk about today. How to react when your first shot doesn't kill the enemy. And just before we jump into things, when I say all shotguns in this video, I'm referring to shotguns with a rate of fire less than 14 and do not have the full auto perk. Shotguns with a rate of fire higher than 14 tend to be very poor choices in the Crucible, so talking about them here, it's not exactly relevant. Full auto is very relevant to this discussion, but it's too much to cover in one video, so I might look into it another time. But anyway, let's get into it. As I mentioned, reacting when you're up close and personal is muscle memory and routine. You won't think about your decisions, you'll make them automatically because you won't have time. And to do that, you have to train yourself to hit the right buttons at the right time, in the right situations, in the right order. My experience shotgunning has taught me three main ways to recover from not getting a one-shot kill. Following your initial shot up with a melee is the most obvious option. Alternatively, you can be evasive and wait for your second shot to kick in. And another option is to switch to your primary. In some situations, all three of these plans will work, and in some situations, none of these plans are going to work. But no matter what, there's always a best play. The play that gives you the highest chance to recover. I'm going to cover these options in more depth. A melee is the most ideal follow-up to a shotgun blast because there's no delay, unlike waiting for a second shotgun shell or switching to your primary. Also, it almost always does enough damage to finish your opponent off, right? If you're close enough to melee your opponent after shooting them with a shotgun, your initial shotgun blast really should have gotten them low enough to be finished with a melee. The problems start when you shoot before you're in melee range, which you should be doing. That's because shotgun kill distance is roughly 8 meters right now, which is 3 to 4 meters longer than the melee range, aside from stormcallers, of course. That's why you can't just program yourself to always melee after a shotgun blast, because you're going to whiff when you're too far, as you can see in this clip. I could go and list every class's melee range, but that's not going to help you because you're not a computer. You're not going to calculate that you're 5.4 meters from your opponent on the fly. That's why you have to practice with your subclass and learn the edge of that range so you know when a melee is the appropriate follow-up. When you're far enough that a melee is not appropriate, you have two other options that we're going to talk about next. Those options are to wait for your second shotgun shell to be ready or switch to your primary to finish your enemy off, like we mentioned. There are a lot of factors that go into that decision. I'm going to discuss and test the impact of the biggest factors, which are the rate of fire of your shotgun, the equip speed of your shotgun, and the equip speed of your primary. Rate of fire is displayed when you inspect your weapon, but the equip speed is a hidden stat that represents ADS speed, ready up time, and swap time. We're going to look at how these stats interact with each other for a few weapon combinations. If you look at what shotguns are being used most often, it's obviously Matadors and Party Crashers. I'm going to test those as well as the Last Ditch because it has a very low equip speed, which you're going to understand better in a few minutes. It's also the weapon I personally use, and it's definitely competitive. As for primaries, the guns you see the most of are Palindrome, Ias Luna, Clever Dragon, Grasp of Malak, and the Mida. We're going to look at the Palindrome and the Clever Dragon since they have the lower equip speeds compared to the Ias Luna and the Grasp. We're also going to look at the Mida. I'll let the testing play while I talk about the results and strategy. Given that your enemy is left one shot or absolute, any additional damage will take them out. So you want to use the option that will fire one more shot the fastest. If the rate of fire allows your shotgun to shoot a second shell before you can switch primaries and pull the trigger, you'll wait for the second shot. If not, you'll whip out your primary. In every case I've shown and will continue to show, for every combination of shotgun and primary in the current meta, switching to your primary is always faster than waiting for your second shot. It might not look like it's a lot quicker, but a quarter of a second is often the difference between a trade and a win. Now, if you remember, I deliberately chose to test the weapons with the lowest equip speeds. I did that so you would know that this testing would apply to the other meta weapons that have better equip times. The IS Luna and Grasp and Malik will switch even faster than the guns I chose for the tests because their equip speeds are faster. We can take this even further though. Maybe you don't play the meta. Maybe you've mastered a different archetype of weapons and want to know how this applies to you. Take a look at this upcoming clip. I've equipped the Last Ditch that has an equip speed of 29, the lowest I could find. For my primary, I have the Ill Will hand cannon with an equip speed of 20, also the lowest I could find. Even with both weapons having the worst equip speed available, you can see it's still faster to switch to your primary than it is to wait for a second shot. I tested this with other shotguns that have faster rates of fire, and I got the same results. So, to conclude, no matter what primary you have, no matter what shotgun you're using, if you leave an enemy with a sliver of health, you will kill them quicker by switching to your primary. So we know that switching to our primary is faster than waiting for a second shot, but this affects more than just how we approach an engagement. It affects our weapon selection as well. Some people prefer Palindrome over IS Luna because it has higher aim assist, 70 versus 50. If you're shotgunning, equip speed is definitely a factor to be considered. Take a look at this comparison. As you can see, the IS Luna is able to fire just a little bit faster than the Palindrome after swapping. So maybe you can adjust to lower aim assist on the IS Luna, which will give you a faster swap time to finish off one-shot enemies. I'm not saying use an IS Luna simply because its equip speed is better. I'm just saying you should consider that as a relevant factor. This concept applies to all primary weapons, whether you play the meta or not. There are also perks that factor into this discussion. Snapshot only affects ADS time, increasing it by 30%. In the context of finishing an opponent off who is absolute, ADS time is not a concern. Given that you just shotgun someone, you're close enough that you should be able to hip fire your primary, which will save you some valuable time. So snapshots are relevant to this discussion. Then there's single point sling. Since this perk increases your weapon swap speed by 50%, you'll definitely pull your primary out faster. And lastly, there's quick draw, which affects ready up time. So if you have quick draw on your primary, understand that you'll be able to swap to that weapon and finish off a low health enemy even faster than you'd normally be able to. When deciding whether or not you want these perks on your primary while shotgunning, remember they do more than just help you change weapons faster. Single point sling also increases your strafing speed by 10%, and quick draw increases how fast you aim down sights. On the topic of being quicker, to best use this information, you have to do things automatically. I calculated that switching weapons to fire with your primary is often about a quarter of a second to a third of a second faster than waiting for your second shotgun shell. If you wait until you identify exactly how low you got your opponent's health before switching weapons, you've wasted the same amount of time that you're saving, which defeats the purpose. What I've been doing, and none of my gameplay reflects this because I literally just learned this last week, is making my decision as I pull the trigger. If I think I was aiming center mass and I was close enough, I'll assume the worst case scenario is that my opponent will be one shot, so I'll switch weapons as soon as I fire my shotgun. The way I see it is, in most situations, I'll have my primary out faster to finish the kill. And, in some situations where I completely whiff and only take a small percentage of my enemy's health, yeah, I'll have my primary out when I would have preferred a second shot from my shotgun. But even in that situation, I'll still have a weapon ready faster. To me, that's worth implementing in my playstyle, and I've been doing that. Regardless of what you expect to happen, don't hesitate. Don't wait until you see your opponent's health bar and then switch to your primary, because that's just going to hurt you. The swap has to be immediately or not at all. Making the decision quickly gets the most out of this. To summarize what we covered today, I'm going to take you through my new decision tree when shotgunning. So let's say I'm in shotgun distance and I pull the trigger. I ask myself, as I pull the trigger, can I melee this guy? If I'm close enough, I'll always melee because it happens instantly and inflicts enough damage. If I'm not close enough for a melee, the question becomes, how confident am I that I'll leave this guy one shot or kill him? If I'm confident, I switch weapons immediately after pulling the trigger. If I'm not confident, I keep my shotgun out and prepare to land another shot. As for the loadout, remember that weapons with better equip speeds will save you precious time in these engagements. Also, perks like single point sling and quick draw can give you even more of an edge. Other than that, practice making quick decisions about what your next play is and try not to hesitate. I know it sounds like a lot to process in a split second, but if you practice, it'll start to come naturally. That's all I've got for you guys today. I put a lot of work into the testing for this video, so a like and a comment would be greatly appreciated. Definitely let me know how this is working out for you guys as well, and I'll see you around. Dukaness out.